Today, we're going to take a look at Mass Effect Andromeda to see whether or not it will run on my 750 Ti, which is currently retailing for $100 at Fry's Electronics. And I'm sure you can find it cheaper, but we'll say $100 for the purpose of this video. So when the game first loads up, it started for me on the lowest settings at a resolution scaling of 700p, which looks pretty terrible, but the answer is yes, it will run. So now the real question is, how well can we make it run? So let's get into the game and see what it's doing. Here I've made some quick adjustments, bumped the resolution scaling up to 900p, just to see what that looks like, and it's a lot better on the aliasing front. I've also added fraps in up at the top so we can see a frame rate. Here in this interior, getting a pretty decent frame rate, but I don't think 60 is going to be realistic unless we take it back down to 700p. That's not going to happen. We don't play on PCs to play at 700p. Alright, and adding in a few more adjustments to see if we can just get another look at what the game can do. Obviously 60 is out of the question, so I'm going to try and play this game at 30. $100 will get you about 30 FPS. It looks like that won't be too much trouble. I'll just quickly bump in some settings and sort of see what we can get. And then I'll play it for a few hours, mess around, and really dial it in, and we'll see how that looks. At this point, it's been about 30 minutes really dialing in the settings, and it seems like 30 FPS is pretty reasonable. It's not the most intense part of the game. I found that cutscenes are really what drags the card down. The 750 Ti just struggles during cutscenes. Out here riding around the world isn't as bad as cutscenes, and it pretty much stays above 30 FPS. So once I've finished all this testing, I'll use NVIDIA Inspector and lock it at 30 to get really consistent performance in the game.
So whatever that liquid is.
As you can see, being in a firefight with plenty going on doesn't seem to drag the video card down too much. I did notice the CPU performance was running a little high. The game appears to be well optimized when looking at the CPU utilization. It doesn't seem like it's overtaxing the CPU. Alright, at this point, I spent about 8 hours playing the game, messing with the settings every now and then, and I've really dialed in the lighting and the geometry settings in the game to really get a nice looking game. I was actually very surprised at how well this runs. For $100, you can absolutely run Mass Effect Andromeda and have a really great experience. I've been having a ton of fun. After I locked the frame rate at 30 FPS using NVIDIA Inspector, I used the Shadow Play FPS tracker for an hour or two just to make sure it was maintaining 30 FPS. And I saw 1 or 2 drops below 30, but for the most part the game ran perfectly smooth. So I went ahead and turned it off and just decided to play and have fun and record some of the stuff I was doing. And as you can see, the lighting, the textures, everything looks amazing for a $100 graphics card. And if you're curious, the CPU I'm using is the AMD FX 6300 overclocked to 3.9 GHz. I did notice something interesting. Whenever I reloaded the game, the CPU would spike to 100% for a minute or two, and the RAM usage would go into the upper 90s. And then after a few minutes, RAM usage would drop down to about 80% usage, and CPU utilization would go down to about 65. It was a pretty strange occurrence, but it's something to note that when you first start up the game, it might be a little bit laggy, but it eventually subsides. It's probably some sort of optimization issue. I will say, on the whole, the optimization of this game is great, considering it can run on hardware like this and I can enjoy it. There's no big frame drops, no huge lag spikes, and it's a very consistent running game. I will say, after many hours of gameplay, this is definitely a very fun game, and it runs very well on my 750 Ti. For only $100 on my graphics card, that's really good. I will say, this is definitely the prettiest game I can currently run on my computer. So I'm very satisfied with it, and if you want to try and run it on a 750 Ti for only $100, go for it. It runs great.
What is this place?
If you like seeing what my $100 750 Ti can do, let me know. I'll make some more videos. Or, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. What do people say? Yeah, I'm sure it's fine. Do whatever you want. I'm a recorded voice, not a cop.